Hey guys, it's Katie. Thanks for stopping by my channel. Today's video is going to be a sewing tutorial. I'm going to show you how to make this fun fleece stocking cap. It's really long, goes all the way down my back. It's got a tassel on the end. They're really fun to make. My friend in high school showed me how to make these, and we made them in our favorite hockey team colors. And then I made some for my family last year because I had some scraps of fleece. And now I'm going to show you how to make them on this sewing tutorial. So what you need is some fleece. And you can go to the fabric store and buy fleece, but it can be kind of expensive, and you need to buy a yard of each color just because of the way it stretches. Unfortunately, you can't just buy the sliver that you need because we need to go down the length of the fabric. So if you don't want to buy it by the yard at the fabric store, or you don't have a fabric store, look for blankets like fleece throws. A lot of times for the amount of fabric you get in a fleece throw, you can get them for just a few dollars. And they usually come in pretty cute prints. You can find them at thrift stores as fleece throws. I've even seen some companies give them away as like a promotional item. So if you can get your hands on a couple fleece blankets, that would work as well. So you're gonna need some fleece, simple things like scissors, pin, sewing machine, that sort of stuff. So I'm gonna show you how to take some measurements. We're gonna draft a super simple pattern, and then we'll cut it out, construct it, and you'll have a cool hat like this. So to draft this pattern, I need to do 2 measurements, and we're gonna make 2 pattern pieces. So let's just look at the hat. We have the brim, which are just rectangles. You can see that? And then we have the body part that is a long triangle. Okay? So that's the 2 pieces that we need. And we're gonna cut multiples of each color, but we just need a rectangle and a long triangle. Okay, so to draft this pattern, we need 2 measurements. One's gonna be a head circumference, and one's gonna be the length of the hat. So normally, when you do a head circumference, you measure like over your eyebrows like that. We're not doing that. We're gonna measure where we want the hat to lay. And so I'm gonna start down at the nape of my neck. I have my hair down because I'm going to wear my hair down when I wear the hat. I wanna have room for my hair, because I have quite a bit of hair. So I'm starting at the nape of my neck. I'm going up over my ears because I want my hat to cover my ears. And then I'm just gonna see what my measurement is. Sometimes it's easier to do this in a mirror or have somebody help you. Okay, and generally when you measure your body part for a pattern, you measure the body part and the pattern adds the ease. So what I'm gonna do is kind of add the ease as I measure it. Let's see. We're about 23.5 inches. I'm gonna pull this out and I'm gonna add about an inch, I think, so that it's a little, you know, it fits over top of my head. That's what the ease is for. You don't want your hat to be the same size as your head. You want it to be on top of your head, if that makes sense. So 24.5. These measurements don't have to be super duper precise because there's some stretch to this material. There's a little wiggle room. So pick whatever the closest number is that's gonna be easy to divide by 4, because that's gonna be our next step. For the circumference, if you see, so your circumference is going around the hat. We're gonna divide this into 2 sets of alternating colors. So we're gonna have 4 bands going around. So we're gonna take that circumference measurement and we're gonna divide it by 4. So 24 divided by 4 is 6, and a 1/2 inch divided by 4 is 1/8 of an inch. So each of these panels is gonna be 6 1/8 inch wide, this way. We also need to add seam allowance. So there's a seam allowance on both sides. So I do a 1/4 inch seam allowance and I need 2 of them. So that's gonna be 2/4, which is a 1/2 inch. I'm gonna add that to my 6 1/8 inch, which will give me 6 5/8. Okay, so my panels are gonna be 6 5/8 inch wide. Hey guys, it's Katie from the future. I'm editing this video and I realized that I wasn't quite as clear as I want to be, so I don't want anybody to run into any problems. So this is clarification. I am making this hat in this video, I'm making it larger than most people would need. I want it, I guess I have a big head, but I also want it to be loose on my hair so that I don't have hat head, so I don't have my curls crushed. So if you are not gonna do your own measurements and you're just gonna follow the measurements that I say in this video, you're probably going to end up with a hat that's too big for most people. So I would say if you're not going to do your own calculations, that's fine. You can just, I would use 6 3/8 inch instead of 6 5/8 inch. And I think that would get most people closer to where they need to be. So going forward in this video, anywhere that I say 6 5/8, just say to yourself 6 3/8, and that should be a good size for most adults. Okay? Okay, bye. Okay, so the other measurement you need is the length of your hat. And so what I do is I take my tape measure and I put it kind of like in the middle of my forehead, where the hat would set. So you can put like if you have a winter hat that you like the way that it fits, put it on and see where that is. So this is how I put this hat on. Whee! Okay. And so it's going to hit me kind of right in the middle of my forehead. That's where the edge of the brim is. Okay. So I'm going to place my tape measure there in the middle of my forehead. Do that, and then I'm going to flip it over my head. It's going down my back. And if you have a full-length mirror or a friend, this might be helpful. You can see it's going over my head, down my back. I'm taking this hand and I'm reaching behind and I'm finding, where did it go? Oh, there it is. I'm finding the tape measure, my hand back here, and I'm just grabbing it where I want it to hit me on my back. Okay? So then I can let go of that end, and I got this measurement, and I got 32 inches. 32 inches, that's your total length. So I'm gonna mark that down. Length equals 32 inches. So that's the whole hat. We have the brim, we have the body of the hat, and we have the tassel. The tassel is gonna be about 4 to 5 inches, depending on how big you wanna make it. So I'm gonna just say 5 inches for the tassel and 2 inches for the brim here. So 5 plus 2 is 7. So we're gonna subtract 7 inches from that length that you just measured. And that's gonna give us 25 inches. That's gonna be our length. Okay, so once you have those numbers that you solved for, we can go ahead and draft our pattern. It's nice to have a big piece of paper. This is like those rolls of kids' craft paper, or you could use a roll of wrapping paper, or you could just tape a bunch of pieces of printer paper together. You need one big piece of paper. We're gonna do 2 shapes. We have the piece that's gonna make up the band. This is gonna be a rectangle. And then we have the piece that's gonna make up the body of the hat. And this is actually a long, skinny triangle that tapers to a point down below where you can't see because it's so long. All right, so the first piece we'll do is the band. It's a rectangle. So the width is that width that we solved for, the 6 5/8, and we need this length, okay? And so I have made mine 5 inches. And this does not look like 5 inches. That's because it goes down and then it folds back onto itself. Okay, so it looks like it's a little over 2 inches, which it is, but it's actually 5 inches. It goes down, back up under itself, and the seam allowance, all included in that. So our first shape is just gonna be a rectangle, and I'm just gonna mark the width at 6 5/8 inch. And then I'm going to go up the width at 5 inches. These see-through rulers are really helpful because you can really square up your edges so you have nice square corners. We're going to go up 5 inches, and then we're just going to put this line to join it together. That. Okay, and then I got a marker here. I'll just mark over it. Okay, so this is 6 5/8 inch that way, and 5 inches this way. Okay, so that's for the band. The triangle has the same width for the short end of it. And so this is also here is the same as that 6 5/8. So we're gonna make a base of the triangle here, also 6 5/8. Okay, and then we need to make the length 25 inches. And we want it to be centered, like we want it to be symmetrical. So we need to find the midpoint of the base, and then we need to measure from that midpoint the 25 inches up to the top. So you could just like fold it in half, you could calculate it mathematically. I am going to just measure it here. Measure the 25 inches. Actually, my ruler is not even big enough. My ruler's only 24 inches. I'm gonna mark 24 inches and then go up another inch. Okay, so that's 25 inches. Put a dot there. And now we're just gonna connect the dots. If I had a yardstick, that would make this easier. Just do your best. Great, so those are the two pattern pieces. You see here's your height. It's gotta be right in the middle of the base. So that's the 25 inches. This is the 6 5/8 inches. Okay? And then from there, the only other thing we would need to cut is the tassels. And these I just used the scraps from cutting out the other pattern pieces. But these pieces, they're about 10, 11, 12 inches by maybe 3/4 of an inch, maybe an inch, just depends on what you have. So we'll show you that at the end. But these are our two pattern pieces. And I'm gonna mark on here that we're gonna cut 2 of each color. Cut 2 of each color. Okay, and if you want to keep the pattern piece, do yourself a favor, mark what it is, mark the size it is. Nothing worse than taking the time to draft a pattern and then you find it later and you don't even know what it makes or what size it is or where it came from. So I'm going to say long fleece hat, body, long fleece hat, band. Okay. Just going to do a rough cut to separate these pieces, and I'm going to lay out the fabric. All right, so we're going to go ahead and lay out our fabric and get our pattern pieces pinned on. There's a couple things we need to know before we start. One is it can be hard to know the right side from the wrong side on fleece, and really either side generally looks okay, but they look different enough from each other, especially when they wash a few times, that it's a good idea to pick a side and stick with it. It doesn't matter which side usually, but you want to be consistent through your whole project. So just look closely. If one side looks maybe a little better than the other side, I just mark that side with a pin. The next thing we need to know is which direction this is stretching. Especially if you're using a blanket and you don't know where the selvage is or was, then we need to just figure that out. So when you have a knit fleece like this, you'll have one direction that's really stretchy and bouncy, and you'll have the other direction that's kind of like perpendicular from that doesn't have much give at all. We want the length of the hat to be the not stretchy part, and then the part that's going around your head, you want that to be the stretchy part for comfort. If you do it the other way, then this can stretch and stretch and stretch, and your hat can grow even longer than it already is. And it will also not be as comfortable around your head because you don't have that give that you're looking for. So I want the narrow side of my triangle to be on the stretchy part, and I want the length of the triangle to be on the not stretchy end. I need to cut 2 of these pattern pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this fabric on top of itself like this, so I can lay the pattern out once and have 2 pieces cut at one time, because we already have to cut 2 of each color of 2 pattern pieces, so we might as well make it as easy on ourselves as possible. So whenever I have the fold up here, So you can see I have my pin showing the right side, and then this is also the right side. Does that make sense? All right, so I'm going to actually scooch this a little bit so we don't waste too much fabric. Now, it is tempting, because this is a triangle, to tilt this like this so that we get the most use out of our fabric, but we don't want to do that. We want to stay straight on the grain as much as possible. Okay, so our stretch is going this way, our not stretch is going this way, and you want to keep it straight to the edge as much as possible. Okay, so that we have an even stretch. Okay, so I'm going to pin this down. And I'll go ahead and cut this out. That's one set done. Okay, we'll go ahead and cut out the rectangle, and the same thing, you want your stretch to go along the 6 5/8 measurement. And again, this is on the fold, so one cut should give us 2 pieces. Okay, so now I got my pattern on the other color. Cut it out. Okay, and we're just gonna give them a little tug and make sure we cut them right. And the stretch is still going along the 6 5/8 dimension. And we did a good job. All right, we're gonna get ready to construct the hat. And I'm going to start with the band, so I'm going to take my pieces for the band, and I want to put them right sides together with one of each color, like this. So right sides together, and we're going to do a seam here. So this is on the 5-inch side. Just doing 1/4 inch seam allowances. And you can pin it together if you want. I am not going to, especially for these shorter ones. Maybe for the long seam, but this one I'm just gonna sew it together and back stitch at the beginning and the end. Okay, the other 2 pieces I'm gonna do the same thing, putting right sides together. Okay, so now we have 2 that are the same, like this, and we're just going to attach the opposite colors again, right sides together, and we're going to sew this seam and then this seam. And the colors are alternating. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, so now the band part is pretty much done. So that's what it looks like when I sewed it. Turn it right side out. Make sure you have all right sides out and make sure you have all of your seams in. And that's done for the band for now. We're gonna basically do the same thing with the body parts of the hat. So I'm gonna choose one that's the bluish color and one that's the green. And I'm gonna match up the shape here, and I'm gonna sew one of these long seams all the way down. Just match up the edge. I'm gonna use pins just because it's such a long seam. Okay, and we can open it up and find the next color. So just follow the pattern. So the blue, the green, the next one's going to be the blue. Take the time to make sure you're putting right sides together. Okay, so that's the seam sewn. Open it up. It looks like this. And we're gonna put the last one, making sure to go right sides together. So now it looks like this, and we just need to now take the first panel and the last panel that we've attached and sew those together, right sides together. Now at the end, especially in this last seam, it can be a little hard because all of these pieces of fabric are kind of coming down together. I'm going to zoom you in. All right, so if you can see, these come to quite a sharp point, and because the fabric shifted a little bit when I cut it, it shifted a little bit when I sewed it, the points are not all lined up. So what I'm going to do, I have these just about 4 inches left of this last seam to sew. What I'm going to do is when I get down to the bottom here, when I get to the shortest of these points, I'm going to continue down this seam, and when I get to this shortest point, I'm just going to go across here. Okay, so to close that up. Otherwise, it's going to have a little hole here, but we're going to put a tassel on the end so you won't even see it. And it's a little tight. Like I said, this is where the angles get a little tight. And then once I get there, we're nearly at the bottom anyway. I'm just going to rotate it sort of a 45-degree angle and just go over the end like that. And then I'm going to cut all those tips off so they're not needed. So now that's what the end looks like. If I didn't go across like that, then there might be a little hole there. So I'm going to, since I have my hand in here anyway, I'm going to put this right side out. And you can see, I'm going to zoom back out and actually push it back a little bit. So this is what the body of the hat looks like. Okay. And then it goes down to the end there. All right, so from here, we just need to attach the band to the body of the hat. Okay, so we have the band and we have the body of the hat, like this. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to attach the band now. So we're going to take the band and we're going to fold it in half, wrong sides together. So that's the wrong side. We're going to fold it like this. Okay, and I'm going to line up the seams like that. I'm going to put a pin in each seam just so that they're straight and even. Okay, so that looks more like the band we saw on the finished hat because it's folded up. Okay, so this is what the band looks like now. This is the cut edge, both cut edges on top of each other, and then this is the folded edge. So this is the bottom edge of the hat. Here we have the body of the hat, and it's right side out, and this is right side out. So we're going to actually put them together, right sides together. And we're going to line up the seams. So we want to make sure that where we have a green band, we're going to match that up with a blue panel. So they're kind of alternating. And then we're going to rotate this a little bit and we'll have a blue band and a green section of the hat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up. So this is where the 2 panels of the body come together, and here's where the 2 panels of the band come together. And I want to line up those seams as evenly as possible. Okay, and then just double check to make sure your band color and your body color are opposite. and your band color and your body color. I like these colors because they seem to complement each other, but this one, there's a lot of green though. In the viewfinder it looks like the same color, but they're the two opposite colors. And then I'm just going to take the pin that was holding those two ends of the band together. I'm going to take that out and then just re-pin it so that I'm pinning the band onto the body of the hat. So I have the body of the hat and then the two layers of the band. So all three of those together. I'm going to shift to the next seam and do the same thing. There's a lot of layers here, so sometimes I just move over a little bit so I'm not going actually in the seam. You already have 3 layers of fabric and then you have all those seam allowances, so you just want to hold them together. So that's what it looks like. The last seam we're going to sew is along this top edge. We're going to connect all 3 of these pieces. Okay? Make sure you're back tacking at the beginning and the end. And the seam that we're doing now is following the stretch of the fabric. So it is sort of easy to stretch one layer of fabric more than the other, and you can get some puckering. So now's the time to go slow and let the feed dogs pull the fabric evenly and try to feed it evenly. Don't yank, don't pull, don't stretch, just if you can help it. So now the moment of truth. I'm going to flip the band down to the right side and we'll see how many seams we lined up well. Okay? A little bit off. Ooh, that one's perfect. This one's a little bit off. And this one's perfect. So actually, getting 1 is pretty good for me. So getting 2 is great. Anyway, so that's the right side of the hat. Let me double check and make sure we got everything on the right color combination. Okay, it looks really good. So from here, we just need to add the tassel. And so I'm just going to cut some strips. And we're just going to cut strips that are about 1 inch by 10, 11 inches, something like that. So 1 inch wide, maybe a little less than 1 inch, and then here, I'll measure it. Let's do 10 inches. Looks good. So you want your strips to look something like that, and we're gonna do, let's do 5 of each color. Okay, so here's our strips, and we're just going to put them together, and I just alternate them. I think it makes a more balanced pom-pom so that the colors are evenly distributed. Like that. Actually, this last one we're going to use eyeball the middle. After they're all bundled up like this, eyeball the middle one, and we're going to use the last one to tie it. Nice and tight, double knot. And that is the pom-pom. Okay, so that's your pom-pom. You can trim it if some of them seem especially long, but I'm actually gonna leave it for at least a day or 2 and shake it out a few times before I cut it, because it's tempting to just trim it, but sometimes when you cut it, then you go back and you feel like you have to cut it more, and then you end up with nothing left of your pom-pom. So sometimes if you just leave it, then it sort of, it's just your perspective is what I'm saying, and it sort of mellows out and you don't feel the need to trim it again. So I'm just going to take some thread on a hand needle and tack that to the end of the hat. Okay, so let's see. All right, see if I can back way up so you can see the whole hat. That's what it looks like. And the easiest way to put these on is like that. That's what it looks like. All right, hopefully you enjoyed the tutorial. Hopefully you made a hat. And if you did, I'd love to see pictures. You can post them on Instagram and tag me. If you have any questions on how to make this hat, you can leave them in the comments below. I always try to get those sort of questions answered as soon as possible. All right, give my video a thumbs up if you were able to make a hat or if you enjoyed it. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye!